Just ahead on American Black Journal, Detroit Public Schools Superintendent Nikolai Vitti talks about resuming classes in the fall, and he gives his personal viewpoint on the issues that are leading to these protests against systemic racism, plus the important role of storytelling during the COVID-19 pandemic. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by NISSAN Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. This week, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is expected to release a detailed roadmap for schools to follow as they look toward reopening in the fall. It's going to include minimum health and safety requirements developed by a COVID-19 task force on education. Meanwhile, schools already have been working on adopting new measures to keep students, teachers, and staff safe. I spoke with the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools, Dr. Nikolai Vitti, about the changes planned for his district.
So you have a little bit of work to be doing, as all school superintendents do. You've made some decisions, though, about what school will look like in the fall. Tell us what you've decided.
Yeah, so this wasn't randomly done. We looked at what the guidance that was issued by the CDC, OSHA, the Michigan's state opening plan, looked closely at the American Federation of Teachers document, AFT, and tried to put all of that together based on the reality that COVID has disproportionately impacted Detroit in the Black community. So we knew that our plan had to be deeper, had to have more protections in it, more safety features than, let's say, districts up north or even to the west of Detroit. And so this is a collection of our best thinking based on the research that's out there, the medical best practice. And now it's about engaging stakeholders internally, externally about how they feel about it. Where are we right? Where are we missing the mark? What needs to be adjusted? What needs to be added? And so far, the conversations have been positive. I think people recognize that this plan does look different from what they've seen from other districts, but that doesn't mitigate the fact that folks are full of anxiety, especially our most veteran teachers. They're worried about coming back, and they have legitimate reasons to worry because they're in a health category that's more at risk. But I think what I've been saying is we can't start the conversation with no, and we can't end the conversation with no. So what do we do differently? What do we do better to make you feel more at ease? Because our children have to have face-to-face instruction.
Yeah. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts of how that will work in the fall and how it's maybe a little different, as you point out, from some other districts.
Yeah, so I think some distinguishing differences would be, one, our employees will have to be tested. So everyone will be COVID tested before they return to the building. That's instructional staff, administrators, support staff. Secondly, we're planning on taking temperature checks as folks come into the workplace, including schools, children included. That will be different. We're going to have students and employees take a self health check linked to the symptoms of COVID. That'll be done through an app that will be submitted daily. that probably will feel different. I think those are the distinguishing points. Beyond that, I think that's when we get in territory where things will be similar. So smaller class sizes, not eating in the cafeteria, not exchanging classes, setting up cleaning stations or sanitation stations where students and employees will have ready access to sanitizer, making sure that our bathrooms are fully supplied. We're going to establish a hotline and an email address so that employees, students, parents can submit complaints or concerns in an anonymous way, so there's no fear of retribution. So we can address those issues. We're going to deeply clean every night. We're going to leave a note of a checklist of everything that was done to assure folks that it was clean. So those are some features that I think other districts will have. But as I said, there are some things that we're going to do differently.
Yeah. One of the things that I worry about, and this is not just in Detroit, I think lots of communities deal with this same dynamic, although of course we have more of it in Detroit, is the ability of parents to be able to adapt to a school week, for instance, that's not 5 days, right? A lot of people count on school for, among other things, taking care of their kids while they're at work. Do you worry that this will play out really differently for families in Detroit?
Yeah, that's we were sensitive about that in creating the reopening plan. That's one reason why we don't intend to go to a hybrid schedule for our K-5s and K-8s. So we are expecting school every day, Monday through Friday. We typically go 7 to 7.5 hours, so we may shorten a day to 6 hours, but we are going to have school every day. And we thought about that because of the siblings reality. A lot of our parents have multiple children at different grade levels. And so it would be maddening to think about, well, the kindergartner has to go to school on Monday, but the fourth grader doesn't go until Tuesday. That would be too much of a hardship on our parents as they're trying to get to work every day, sometimes working 2 to even 3 jobs. So we don't want to burden them in that area. But some of our large high schools may have to rely on a hybrid schedule on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday basis. There'll be day-to-day teaching, but not all students in the building at once. Just schools like Cass, Western, Renaissance are too big to have that many students in the building, at least preliminarily in the fall. That might change if things continue to improve from a COVID perspective, but right now we're just not comfortable with that in the fall. So we're also better positioned as a district because of the Connected Futures investment. The $20 million and every student having a device and internet access does level the playing field for us, so that if we have a second wave, we can go to online learning and continue the regular curriculum with grades. The devices and internet access also allows us to think differently with large rooms. So we could have lots of students in a cafeteria or in a gym if it's not being a media center, and having them spread out, but on a device so they can hear the instruction that's happening in a classroom, but in that larger setting. That allows us to reduce the number of students in a classroom at once. But you're going to see at the elementary and K-8 level, more pull-outs academically for small groups in literacy and math. And on a positive side, more recess breaks, more physical activities, pulling students out for art and music. So in some ways, I'm actually thinking that we might actually have more intentionality, more focus than we've ever had before, because we have to work things differently. I saw in Florida, when schools had to respond to shutdowns because of hurricanes, there was this renewed energy, sense of urgency that happened when children came back. And I'm not trying to spin this. I just think optimistically that there's a renewed focus and intentionality about what we do, because we haven't had our children face to face for almost 6 months now.
Yeah.
It'll be 6 months.
You've also made some changes to the way that teachers are going to be paid. Importantly, raising the salaries for starting teachers, young teachers, That's been such a long time coming.
That's been one of our greatest challenges in reforming the district is being fully staffed. So as you know, we started with 275 vacancies when we started. When we started this last year, 1920, we were down to 70, but 70 is still too many. And as we go into this year, knowing that we have to reduce class sizes, it's even more important that we're fully staffed and we recruit a surplus of teachers. So at 51,000, we are the most competitive school district now in Metro Detroit.
Before I let you go, I want to talk about something I saw on social media. You speaking out about the demonstrations that we're seeing across the country and the issues that are inspiring those demonstrations. And then I guess you got a little pushback from some people about it. And you talked about just how fragile some people's sense of themselves is in the light of discussions about race and racism and inequality.
Yeah, so, for me, married to a Black woman and having biracial children and leading DPSCD, I live race, every day. You can't do this work. I can't be me if you're not dealing with issues of race. But I think for our country, there's an awareness, there's a conversation that normally doesn't happen in the white community. And I've always had those, folks call them challenging, difficult conversations with people, but people are talking more about it, and I think that's positive. But I have seen this knee-jerk reaction to the conversation about race, specifically the issue of whiteness and white privilege. It's clear that white America views this conversation as a zero-sum game, that unfortunately, as the Black community or allies of the Black community talk about equal rights, racial injustice, racial justice, police brutality, the conversation seems to always shift to, well, and it's not said directly, but if we're going to do that, I lose something, or what about me? I worked hard to get what I received, and it's never a conversation about what it means to be privileged in this country by being white, and what it means to be at a disadvantage and discriminated against because of the color of your skin. And that's a difficult conversation for white America, and it's scary how we see that leveraged politically, for example, and we've seen that for decades, but especially with our president right now, where racial tension, which is real, racial misunderstanding, which is real, is manipulated and used in order to maintain power, increase power, and to gain votes instead of having a real conversation about whiteness, privilege, and discrimination. We divide people. And I think some folks on the other side think, well, we're dividing people by talking about race. No, we're talking about truth or reality and what needs to happen differently. We can have that conversation and it not be a zero-sum game. People having equal rights and their human rights affirmed isn't about taking something away from the white community. It's giving something to the Black community that's just naturally deserved, that has been taken away. But that's what I was speaking to regarding that tweet, and it just speaks to how much farther we have to go as a country and how we need federal leadership to bring us together, not divide us. And we haven't had that in 4 years, and it's only gotten worse because it's manipulated and it's used to divide us.
The protests against systemic racism, along with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, are creating new chapters in America's history. The stories will likely include words like crisis, change, and connection to describe what we are all experiencing. I talked with Satori Shakoor, founder of the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, about the messages coming out of these unprecedented times. So let's talk about the role of storytelling at a time like this. I mean, of course, in the African American community, stories are what got us through hardship, continue to get us through hardship. There are so many hardships right now that we're facing anew or being reminded of that you've come to my mind several times about how does all this resonate, and how do we use story to heal and to survive?
Well, if there was ever a time for storytelling, the time is now. And that's what we're doing. There's the big story that we see every day on the news. And then there are the smaller stories, the most significant stories of the nurses and the doctors and those planes flying over to applaud their courage, and the story of people's traditions and rituals disappearing in the face of how do I get closure for this person that died. Some of our leaders in Detroit disappearing, and we wondering what the world's going to be like without their leadership after we're allowed to come out of our homes, or the spaces the spaces inviting and safe. So to tell the stories, because I love people through their stories, and I get texts from people all the time. I have a story. Do you have time to hear it? Well, yeah, it's COVID-19. And they call me up and they tell stories of loneliness and the breakthroughs they're having, that when COVID is over, they're not going to let anything stop them from having that man, or people who I didn't even know baked. I didn't know that they did half the things that they did, sell jewelry, and all of a sudden that little hobby, that little thing they never told you about, is first and foremost in terms of entrepreneurship. So there are flowers and things that are blooming in the midst of all of this tragedy and heartache. And I always, I lived through the 67 riots. I was a kid, but I also lived through the 92 riots in Los Angeles with Rodney King. And each of those times, the artists always debated the word riot, or uprising. And we can call whatever this is, that was what that was. And it's a place for our frustrations and our angers to be expressed. Where can it go? It has to spill out beyond our bodies and search out other like-minded people who are tired. We're ready for a change. And we're in that shifting. I think I was on your show last year. We're in the shift. This is shifting. I broke last week. I cried. I couldn't stop. I didn't think I could stop. And I didn't know what grieving I was doing, but I'm a mother. And so as a mother, I grieve all the time. Grieving is an ongoing process. You talked about storytelling is healing. Grieving is the path, it's the way to healing, because if you don't let it out, and now we have that opportunity not to schedule our grief or to postpone it, it's in our face, because what else is there to do
can't get away from it.
You cannot get away from it. And now I hope people are appreciating, though it's a release, the pain is going out of your body, like when you inject a flu shot, you feel the symptoms, or you do a detox and you're doing a healthy thing, but you feel bad because the stuff is coming out. Mm-hmm. And then one day you remember your mother and you laugh, or you call her old number and you hope and pray that no one has it or somebody righteous has it, and you heal.
Yeah. So the challenge to you as someone who hosts storytellers and people who love stories is, how do you do that now that we can't be together in the same way? And you are innovating like lots of artists are. Tell us what the future, or at least the immediate future, of Twisted Storytellers is going to look like.
Well, I mean, storytelling has an enormous human value, obviously. So no matter what's going on, we're going to find a way to tell our stories. And so because we are where we are in the world of technology and Zoom, we are all on the same playing field. So I don't have to try to figure it out. I can see what other people are doing to try to get their to come into people's living rooms and still entertain them and give them an encouraging word. And so we find a way, and so we have found another way to tell our stories. It's very different than live, obviously, because you can't see and breathe and hug people. But what we're trying to do is create like a little half-hour show where we have a storyteller tell a short story, and then we have other people come and talk around the theme in a very dynamic way, because I grew up in the 60s and the 70s where conversation was an art. And the entertainment show like Johnny Carson or Ed Sullivan, people would entertain and tell their stories. And there was the raconteur and the comedian with the cigar. And so language was so juicy and it delighted my mind.
There is so much weighing on us as African Americans right now that I think none of us could have imagined before. I want to give you a chance, though, to talk. I mean, as somebody who's such a foundational part of this community, an important part of the arts community here, talk about where you think we end up. I mean, that's one of the things that really concerns me is we still have lives that matter and that we want to matter more. Where does all of this lead us, and where does it lead the arts community, which I know is always more ready for change, I feel like, than the rest of us, always thinking about what's next. Are you optimistic in ways about the future?
Yes. As I said, I lived through, other Rodney King and on and on and on and on. But as an artist in LA at the time, the artists were the ones that picked it up. They were the voices. We took over spaces and places. I had a project with two other artists to go down into South Central and interview the National Guards, the Koreans, the African Americans, and Black Korean soldiers, the store, everybody, to get their stories and then put it into a sort of installation where people could come and listen and write on the walls, because what we don't have and why storytelling, it looks like, storytelling, but really we're developing listeners, and listeners are what people who are listening to other people are the people who are going to change the world, because they're going to allow themselves to reach a place of understanding. Where do we end up? We've ended up there now. We're now until we change fundamentally the policies, the structure, the system that delivers the same outcomes over and over again, because that's what they're designed to do. Mm-hmm. So I hope that this moment is a moment where we're going to actually not tear down. We don't have to tear it down. We can create something quite new right beside it and then choose, like the election. You have Trump or Biden. If you're not clear about your choice, then we're not worried about you. You wake up sometime in 2022, but the other people have to know who they're voting for and what kind of world they're voting for. So it's not just about getting over this moment of George Floyd and another painful execution in front of us. It's about using the moment. And even human beings are so extraordinary to me. George Floyd's brother and all of the grief and pain and shock he was feeling had the compassion to say, let's do this another way. Vote.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. So we're going to end up where we are right now, and probably wherever this is going to take us if we don't make a sharp U or left or right. We have to fundamentally change things. That's why I posted the thing on Facebook this morning. Joe, pick a Black woman for your BP. She's ready. She's been ready. And my whole argument of why that makes sense right now.
That is going to do it for us today. Go to AmericanBlackJournal.org for more interviews. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We're going to leave you with an amazing performance of one of my favorite songs, Lift Every Voice and Sing, by the Sphinx Organization's Vocal Ensemble. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Lift every voice and sing. Sky. us march on till victory is won.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by NISSAN Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.